Hey World Geography students, time for another Mr. Johnson's video. Today starts with a disclaimer, and that disclaimer is I strongly caution to not watch this around food or when you're eating or anything associated with that because it might get a little disgusting, not gonna lie. The second disclaimer is there might be some videos or content that are just a little gross. So there's your fair warning, but this is probably one of my favorite activities to go over in that students pay attention to this one because of its character and nature of how gross it is. And it's also a wonderful wrap up for the penultimate video that I'm making for this class. By that penultimate means the second to last because next week is the last video I'm doing on Australia and the Pacific Islands. But anyway, today I'm going to talk about what causes the Ganges River to be so polluted. And secondly, the question you all love to ask all teachers is, why do I care? Well, the fact that I'm filming this for you in a quarantine should be one example of why it should care. Because as much as we've worried about stuff coming out of China, in India is where we're worried about a superbug developing. Not so much a virus, but a bacteria or some other strain that is resistant to all known drugs because of where it came from, because of the conditions in the Ganges River that make it so disgusting. What kind of ways is it disgusting? That's where this grin should make you a little uneasy, and let's go over some world geography facts and information right now.
Prior to the late 1960s, there was no federal legislation to protect the environment. A number of events led to a shift in the American consciousness. One of these events occurred in the summer of 1969 when the Cuyahoga River caught fire. Starting in the 1860s, the city of Cleveland dumped its raw sewage directly into the river. Industry also dumped flammable liquids such as oil and gasoline. All these pollutants created floating oil slicks that caught fire a total of 9 times since the late 1800s. In 1951, the Ohio Water Pollution Control Board was created. It became unlawful to pollute any river without a permit. However, permits were granted to industries that existed on rivers already designated for industrial use. The largest of the fires occurred in 1952 with an estimated $1.5 million in damages. Yet this fire was only covered in the local newspapers. It did not capture the American public's attention. By the 1960s, the river was dead. It had no oxygen, plants did not grow, and fish did not thrive. On June 22, 1969, a pile of oily debris caught fire from an overhead rail car. It floated down the river and only burned for 24 minutes. The fire was put out before any photos of the blaze could be taken. The only images of the event showed crews hosing down the remaining smoldering timbers. While the 1969 fire was not a dramatic event, the environmental movement was already smoldering. America was primed to react. Time magazine printed images from the earlier, more dramatic 1952 fire. These were images of a river engulfed in a towering inferno. These images went viral across the nation. America ignited. It was the summer of '69 and the Cuyahoga River was on fire. The Cuyahoga River fire of 1969 coalesced with our nation's budding environmental awareness to form the Federal Clean Water Act and the body of environmental law that we know today. Today, the Cuyahoga River is protected and is given special attention through the Heritage River program. Most of the fish population has returned. Today, the Cuyahoga serves as a source of pride for the people of Cleveland.
So the first thing to do on your worksheet that you have, that if you wanted to print it off, that's included in the email, go for it. I really, really recommend you do it. It makes it a little bit more fun and interactive, and we're doing it together, woohoo team and all that stuff. But for real, If you're just following along with me, that's fine too, because you know I'm going to be giving you questions on this. The first thing to do is label the Ganges River. And so this is the Ganges River, and it comes all the way up here like that. So, Ganges River. Label it. If you have a color around, color it in blue. Awesome. So, it's a sacred river to India. They're Hindu, and they believe that the river Ganga has some power in helping with reincarnation. It's holy in that regard because it is seen as life-giving as well as life-renewing. So, let's see how this plays out. The first major pollution problem in India is the pollution from industrialization. So, the concept that we start off with is industrialization. What does that turn into? Well, it's the factory runoff. Usually it's pharmaceutical companies like drugs that are pouring active ingredients into the river. There's tanneries, heavy metals that can be poisonous or toxic. So all this is being dumped into the river. So for that symbol, I drew a little factory. I cheated. Normally I draw factories and stuff in the class, but obviously we're making do. So here's one video on industrial pollution in the
You don't have to be a scientist to know the Ganges is polluted.
Really smells.
I'm in Kanpur, the centre of India's huge leather industry.
There's a tannery.
ये धुआं का है उसका धुआं
Much of the leather produced here is exported to Europe and the US.
Oh God, it's really powerful. Very strong. And what kind of waste do we have in here?
ये highly chemicalized and toxic water,
Yeah.
wastewater coming from the tanneries. And you know tanneries use a variety of chemicals, hundreds of chemicals.
Including really dangerous chemicals like chromium they
Yeah.
use to soften the leather, don't they?
Yeah, chemicals
Oh, man.
having heavy metals and pesticides as well.
So which ones are tanneries here? But the government says it is making progress reducing pollution, and to prove it, we've been given permission to go out with a team of pollution control officers on a surprise inspection of the leather tanneries. Come in. Whoa, this is a bit different. So look, he's stopping something happening down there. Hey. What are you stopping? Why are you stopping? Who is in charge of this place?
कौन है ये सब क्या है
4 days. There's 4 days of flesh. This is where they strip the flesh from the hide. There are huge puddles of water, and the water has that distinctive blue. It's blue because there's chrome in it.
Yeah.
And there's hides here that clearly have been treated
No,
with the
it-
chrome. This does not look so good.
that tidy that much
This,
tidy
this
yeah
does not look tidy at
Tidy
all.
at
What do you?
all.
Looks disgusting.
Yeah.
The effort to clean the river is more than just an environmental project. How do you get across? It's being seen as a crucial test of India's ability to modernise, because it means tackling corruption. Oh man, it's like walking on rubber. And enforcing effective regulation, as well as massive investment in sewage and effluent treatment infrastructure. It is clear there is still a long way to go. Meanwhile, the government says it has raised pollution standards and has already closed more than 100 tanneries. It says its Clean Ganga mission is a key priority, but warns it will take time.
We are not saying that the whole Ganga mission will be complete in 5 years. No. 5 years.
Enjoying that so far? Not too bad, right? So, the next one. India, thanks to the Green Revolution, lots of new farmlands and crops that produce more food, that have had more population, is growing rapidly. And surprisingly, India still has a very large non-urban population. They have a large rural population that's either in towns or small villages, despite having over 1 billion people. But that's changing. India is industrializing and it's urbanizing, which means the growth of cities. So the next major concept is urbanization. Now, what does that mean? It means there's problems that come from the growth of cities, such as traffic and transportation, schools, and health services, such as sewage. so because of that, they dump a lot of raw, untreated sewage into the river. And so to make it super pretty, I drew a toilet. And that's as far as I'm going with this. I'm not drawing anything better. I'm sure I could have found an emoji, but not today. So here's another video on some of the pollution in the Ganges.
By far the most toxic pollution of this river is probably the least visible unless you happen upon drainage canals like this one, which discharge millions of gallons every day of raw, untreated sewage. Experts link pollution in the Ganga and other rivers to India's high rate of waterborne illnesses, which kill an estimated 1.5 million children each year. Researchers have also discovered the emergence of so-called superbugs in Ganges water samples, bacteria resistant to most commonly used antibiotics.
Slum housing was one response to this problem. But living in slums can place a huge burden on families, socially and financially. The residents are routinely called encroachers and illegal settlers, while others label them dirty.
ये उसी कहानी की तरह है जो शिरीष पटेल जी ने, जो अर्बन प्लानर हैं, अपने आर्टिकल में ये कहानी का उल्लेख करा था। उन्होंने बोला था कि ये इस तरीके से ही है कि एक बड़ी सी शिप पर बहुत सारे वर्कर्स हैं जो शिप को सफाई करते हैं, उसके अंदर तरह तरह के काम करते हैं। तो उसका कैप्टन करता है कि आप दिन भर यहाँ काम करो, हम आपको काम का दाम भी देंगे, हम आपको काम का पैसा भी देंगे, पर रहने की सुविधा हम आपको यहाँ नहीं दे सकते। आप दरिया के अंदर, समुद्र के अंदर रहो, कैसे भी करके आप अपनी रात गुजारो। अगर आप शार्क मछली के खाने बनने से बच जाते हो तो सुबह को टाइम पर 8 बजे आ जाओ, और नहीं आते हो तो बहुत सारे लोग लाइन में हैं, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग आपसे भी कम पैसों में काम करने के लिए तैयार हैं। बॉम्बे की कहानी भी इसी तरीके से है कि यहाँ पर हम दिन भर लोगों से मेहनत करवाते हैं, उनकी सर्विसेज लेते हैं, पर जब वो अपने घर की डिमांड करते हैं तो उनको हम एनक्रोचमेंट का एक तमगा दे देते हैं।
Their homes may be less expensive, but they end up paying a lot more for water and basic amenities. Sanitation is virtually non-existent, which can result in a wide variety of illnesses. Take Sanjay Nagar on the eastern edge of Mumbai, a broken wall separating it from the Devnar garbage dumping ground. Families live here 7 members to a room. The open drains were covered only 3 years back, but they keep overflowing into the residents' homes.
तो पानी घर के अंदर आ जाता, पानी के साथ साथ कीड़ा आता, मच्छर आता, हर चीज उसके अंदर आ जाती है। कीचड़ ले लेके चूहा अंदर से थैली बिली सब चीज घसट के लाता। इतनी तकलीफ हम लोग को है कि फिर भी हम लोग कैसा करके झेल ले रहे, देख लियो।
Now here's where it's going to start getting a little oof. You've probably already read what's on the board, so I might as well just keep going. So the next one is their religious faith, with tying the river to their faith and to reincarnation. However, it's not just that, it's that there's a lot of poverty. And because of the poverty, they can't afford crematoriums to burn the dead, and they can't afford enough firewood to completely burn their dead. And it is not uncommon for the partially cremated remains to be thrown into the river. And so because of that, you have partial remains going into this river. So I drew a funeral pyre symbol. It's basically 2 pieces of wood and people in between and fire on top. In case you haven't noticed, I've been enjoying Star Wars Week and going full on out. So if you remember the end of Return of the Jedi, spoilers by the way, here, I'll spare you. There's a person who gets burned in a funeral pyre, and that's one of those examples there. I didn't ruin it for anybody in case they haven't seen it, but you should have seen them by now. Moving on. So that's one more issue in the Ganges River, and so here's a video about that.
Bodies have been cremated on the banks of the river Ganges for hundreds of years. bathed in the waters of the holy river, wrapped in linen, and placed on a wooden pyre, the dead are consumed by flame. Swami Varishtananda, a monk and a doctor, is my guide to death and the afterlife in Hinduism. But the one place he can't take me is the cremation ground itself.
Okay, this is the holiest crematorium.
Correct.
In the holiest city, on the holiest river.
Right.
In the world.
Right.
Okay. Can anybody come and watch?
In a way, yes, but from far. It is not proper to go there and watch. From far you can watch.
From far, but you can't come to the crematorium.
Right. It's a sacred place, only mourners.
You can, however, get very close to a body before it's burned. Mourners carry them down this lane to the Ganges all day long, 7 days a week. In Varanasi, life and death mingle freely.
So, Swami, I see these funerals. We've seen 2 or 3 pass by, and the people following, they seem to be joyously chanting rather than sadly wailing. Why is that?
They are facilitating the soul's journey further. And in a way, it's a matter of joy. One, grief is there, having lost a near one.
Yeah.
But that person has moved on to a better way of getting on with his or her life.
हिंदू धर्म के अनुसार मृत शरीर का एक भाग वायु में और दूसरा भाग जो भस्म के रूप में रह जाता है वो मिट्टी में मिल जाना चाहिए। पर इस ब्राह्मणवादी व्यवस्था में लोगों ने जलाने के बाद जो कुछ हिस्सा बच जाता है उसे गंगा नदी में प्रवाहित किया जा रहा है, जो कि जिससे कि गंगा नदी प्रदूषित हो रही है। ये सिर्फ लोगों द्वारा ही नहीं बल्कि शासन के स्तर पर भी ये कार्रवाइयाँ हो रही हैं।
जैसे आज हम देखिए हमारी माँ गंगा, उनमें जो है मरे हुए जानवरों की भैंस और गाय को डाल दिया जाता है जो कि सड़ जाती हैं। कितने लोग जिनके पास पैसा है या नहीं है वो अपनी सीधा लाश को ले आके गंगा जी में बहा देते हैं, वो भी सड़ जाती होगी। उससे कितने जो है कीटाणु गंगा जी में विलीन हो रहे हैं। साथ ही बहुत बड़ा शहर का नाला जो है वो गंगा जी में बहा दिया खोल दिया गया है एकदम सीधे। उसकी वजह से एकदम उसमें पोल्यूशन फैलता चला जा रहा है।
कितने दिन से नाव खेल रहे हैं आप?
यहाँ लमसम 15 साल से।
कभी आपने किसी शव को फेंका है?
नहीं
फेंका है?
नहीं।
फेंकते देखा है कभी?
हाँ फेंकते हैं, लोग जाते हैं फेंकने के लिए।
हाँ।
अब महात्मा है, साधु है, तो उनके लिए वो तो अलाउ है।
हाँ।
उनको जलाया जाता नहीं।
हाँ। और बच्चे जो फेंकते हैं लोग?
बच्चे तो चोरी छुपा ले आते हैं, अपना गाड़ी से ले आए, किनार में आए, फिर लोग डाल दिए। अब उनको क्या करे, बच्चा है उसको जलाया जा नहीं सकता।
हाँ हाँ,
उसको डालना ही पड़ेगा।
तो अब इसके लिए आप लोग कुछ करेंगे कि लोग इसमें शव न डालें?
इसके लिए प्रयास तो सतत हो रहा है।
हाँ।
लेकिन जल प्रदूषण अधिनियम 1974 भी है।
हाँ।
इसकी धारा 43 जो है जिसमें दंड है 6 साल की सजा है।
हाँ।
या रुपये जुर्माना है। हाँ। लेकिन उसका पता नहीं क्यों उसका कार्यान्वयन नहीं हो रहा है। यहाँ तक कि न्यायालयों को भी नहीं पता है कि इसकी क्या प्रक्रिया है, कैसे इस तरह के केसेस जो है उनको किया जाएगा। और इसलिए ये कार्य जो है तो पिछड़ा हुआ है और नदियों का प्रदूषण दिन पर दिन बढ़ता जा रहा है।
So next up, we also have religious practices coming into it as well, and beliefs that go into it. Disclaimer, as you're reading this already, I want to be clear. I'm not condemning them for their religious practices, and there's no fault in them. The problem is what people have done, other Indians have done to this river. Their religious practices are sound, and they are good, and I understand them, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just coupled with all these other problems, this becomes another issue. Moving on, this isn't a bad thing about the religion, but because of their faith and their firm belief in it, it gets them into, in a sense, some bad situations because people, as you can see, they bathe in it. The river is considered holy, so you immerse yourself in the river, or you drink the river, or you even take your family to it and you dunk them into the river. Meanwhile, all this stuff is going on. So, yeah, this is some pretty disgusting stuff. So on this, I drew or put an icon in of a bathtub. So bathing in it goes to it, right? So all of those combine, and because of all of that, what I've called before the waste and the floaters, but combining all of that together creates a lot of potential for diseases, especially when it comes to human contact, because a lot of those pharmaceuticals are active ingredients that we have in our medications. And if they don't work because whatever the contagion or whatever these things are in the water, they're used to those chemicals and they can resist some of our active ingredients. That's where we have a growing concern as well. So the amount of people around, the amount of this, just to disgust you all out even more with germs, generally speaking, if we were to, wipe our whole bodies and discover the bacteria that's on our bodies, every human being will have at least 2 new species of bacteria. And we're not even counting the gut stuff. Or the fact that there's about 5 pounds of non-us on our bodies. Usually including bacteria and other stuff. So there's your fun and cheery thought of the day. Okay, you've also probably worried a little bit because we're not done yet. I'm still talking, which I'm sure you all appreciate, but there's down here. So we'll show you a video on the religious practices involving the bathing, and then this will be shown to you as well.
Texas. And while the public supports a cleanup, Mishra says many don't perceive a grave threat to a river that they feel can withstand anything.
People will say there can be some dirty things in the river, there may be some pollution, but river remains pure. So that's a strength as well as a challenge for us.
He says there needs to be a shift in perception and even in some rituals.
Millions of Hindus will be swimming in the Ganges this week for the annual Magh Mela festival, just as they have for years. But it's not a pleasant swim. The Ganges is one of the world's most polluted rivers. That isn't just a problem for swimmers. More than 500 million people depend on the Ganges as their main source of water. And despite a multi-billion-dollar cleanup initiative that India announced in 2014, the river hasn't gotten any safer for them.
We have come to see the beautiful Ganga here, to experience its warmth that is giving it to us.
Tell me about the spiritual significance that you feel.
It cannot be said, it is to be felt.
But not everyone is worried about the toxic waste and sewage that continue to pour into the Ganges. There's a persistent myth among the public and even scientists that the river is so holy, it's essentially self-cleaning.
If you drink the water, then it will help in improvement of your health.
B.D. Tripathi is a professor and former expert for the National Ganga River Basin Authority, the agency responsible for overseeing the implementation of Modi's cleanup program. He is surprisingly optimistic about the situation.
If you increase the flow into the water, then 60 to 80% organic pollution problem will be automatically resolved.
Really?
Yes.
You believe that the river Ganga can heal itself if there's more water in the river Ganga?
Of course, 100% true. If water is there, if flow is maintained, Ganga will solve its own pollution problem. Dilution is the solution of pollution.
So we can still dump sewage into tannery waste?
Yes.
Tripathi's belief in the Ganges' power is misplaced. Industrial waste accumulates in the environment over time and can't simply be diluted. Still, the river's pollution isn't stopping people from going to the Ganges to be cleansed. So you're not sort of bothered by the pollution?
No, not good.
Have you guys taken a dip?
I can go do it right now. I'm so fond of Ganga.
You would hop in right now?
Yeah, I love Ganga.
Ha! Just kidding. I didn't have this shown yet because I wanted to explain something first or make you think for a moment. I know. But I want to look at big picture. A lot of geography this year has been you memorizing things and understanding things, but here I want you to think and make these connections because it will help you in other classes to think about these things. So if you notice, what are the things we've already talked about? We've gone over industrialization, so economic stuff, urbanization, which is another feature of geography. Then we go over religious practices as well as economics. So we have cultural and social, all of these together. They all have something in common. I'm waiting for you to think. So, they all have something in common, which means we left out another major topic that we haven't gone over yet. So if you guessed right, yep, we've gone over human things. What about the natural environment? So, here's the next part. You're right. So we have physical geography, particularly climate, and they have monsoons. And so here I drew, or I used the icon of, a large rain cloud. Because what's a monsoon? So down here, these winds are coming up. I'm backwards, sorry. So down here, these winds are going up into India and pouring down rain for 6 months of the year. Then the winds shift as the monsoon winds shift, and then they go this way for 6 months. And that's why areas like Southeast Asia get a monsoon on the opposite as India. Hey, I got that right. So this region right in here gets flooded, and not just little flooded, like inundated. This area right here is the size of Virginia and gets covered by a lot of water. And because of this flooding hazard, you're having floods that consist of industrial waste, human remains, and whatever was on them from bathing, all staying put in Bangladesh. And so that's what causes this river to be so polluted, because flooding is also disastrous to water, and as it stagnates, it can get worse and changes there too. So another video on that. So cool. That wrapped up the video that I wanted to go over with you all, just to show you why this is also dangerous, and putting a lot of factors and things we've gone over in class over the year that we're now putting together and showing you how all of these functions of human activity have created this really awful problem. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it wasn't as humorous, other than me just being quirky and really into Star Wars, which is what you expect by now. I did leave you a little video at the end for fun. Let me know how you did on this video. It'll be in the questions like I always do anyway. So anyway, have a good week. I'll probably have a video for you next week earlier than this time, because all grades are due by May 15th. So a week from tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm going to have one more of these, and then I'm going to update all these grades for all the ones that you guys have done. And that's that. So have a good week all. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. Bye.